Church father punished racist bank manager who disgraced his old father. The morning sun bathed the small town of Eldermore in a soft, golden light, casting long shadows across cobblestone streets. Yared tightened the buttons on his well-worn coat. The fabric faded but neatly pressed. He adjusted his hat, an old relic from his factory days, and took a deep breath of the crisp air. Despite his age, his spirit remained unbroken, and today was just another challenge to face head-on. Yared's destination was the Eldermore Bank, a grand building that stood at the center of town, its polished marble facade gleaming in the sunlight. It had once been a modest structure when Yared was young, but over the years, it had grown in size and importance, a symbol of the town's progress. He approached with both nostalgia and apprehension, clutching a brown leather folder that held his pension documents. As he entered the bank, the familiar scent of polished wood and freshly printed currency greeted him. The place was bustling, customers hurrying in and out, clerks busy behind the counters, the rhythmic tapping of typewriters filling the air. Despite the activity, Yared's steady presence drew a few glances. He was well known in Eldermore, respected for his quiet strength and enduring contributions to the community. Yared approached the front desk, where a young clerk with a warm smile greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. Yared. How can I help you today?" she asked kindly. "I'm here about my pension," Yared replied. "There seems to be a discrepancy in the amount I received this month." Before the clerk could respond, a stern voice cut through the air. "If it's a problem with pensions, I'll handle it." Yared turned to see Ladrick, the bank's new manager, striding toward them. Ladrick was tall and impeccably dressed, but his eyes lacked warmth. He had only been in Eldermore a few months, but his reputation for being curt and dismissive preceded him. Ladrick looked Yared up and down, his lips curling into a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's not waste the clerk's time," he said. "Follow me." Yared hesitated for a moment, but nodded. He followed Ladrick to a side office, its walls lined with certificates and framed photos of wealthy patrons. Ladrick sat behind a large oak desk and motioned for Yared to sit opposite him. "What seems to be the problem?" Ladrick asked, his tone sharp. Yared placed a folder on the desk and opened it. "There's been an error in my pension deposit. It's smaller than usual, and I'd like to understand why." Ladrick barely glanced at the papers before leaning back in his chair. "Old records often have mistakes. I've seen it before. People your age tend to forget things, too." Yared's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "This isn't a matter of memory, Mr. Ladrick. It's a matter of principle. I've worked hard my entire life, and I deserve what I've earned." Ladrick sighed dramatically and stood. "You people always think you're entitled to more than what's fair. Perhaps someone younger should handle your affairs next time. Someone who won't get confused." The words stung, each one delivered with precision and malice. Yared felt a wave of humiliation wash over him. He stood slowly, gathering his papers with deliberate care. "I didn't come here for disrespect, Mr. Ladrick. I came here for justice," he said quietly but firmly. Without waiting for a response, Yared turned and walked out of the office. His steps were measured, his head held high, but inside his heart ached. The whispers and stares of the other customers followed him as he exited the bank, leaving behind the sting of indignity. As Yared stepped back into the sunlight, he took a deep breath, steadying himself. His resolve hardened with each step he took away from the bank. This wasn't just about his pension anymore. It was about something much bigger. He needed to tell his son, Father Orjan. The walk from the bank to St. Martin's Church was short, but it felt longer than usual for Yared. Each step carried the weight of what had transpired. His heart, though heavy, refused to yield to despair. He knew his son, Father Orjan, would listen, not just as a priest, but as the man Yared had raised to value justice and compassion. As he approached the church, Yared took a moment to admire its modest but dignified presence. The stone walls, worn by time, stood firm, much like the town's spirit. The large wooden doors creaked slightly as he pushed them open, revealing the calm, familiar sanctuary. The scent of candles and polished pews greeted him, soothing his frayed nerves. Father Orjan knelt at the altar, deep in prayer, his robes, simple yet elegant, draped gracefully around him. He had inherited Yared's resilience and his mother's quiet strength. His dark eyes, often calm, now carried a sharpness that mirrored the deep sense of purpose instilled in him since childhood. Hearing the soft echo of footsteps, Orjan turned and rose to greet his father. "Baba, I wasn't expecting you this early," he said with a warm smile, using the affectionate term he'd always used for Yared. "Is everything all right?" Yared returned the smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. Orjan led him to a quiet corner of the church, where they sat in one of the side pews. The stained-glass windows cast soft patterns of colored light across the floor, a peaceful contrast to Yared's troubled expression. "What happened?" Orjan asked, his tone calm but concerned. Yared recounted the incident at the bank, sparing no detail. He spoke of Ladrik's dismissive attitude, the public humiliation, and the sharp sting of prejudice. As the story unfolded, Orjan's expression darkened. His hands clenched, but he remained silent, listening intently. When Yared finished, Orjan exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the altar. "He humiliated you publicly, in front of everyone," he said quietly, more to himself than to his father. "And he did it because he believes you're beneath him." Yared placed a hand on Orjan's shoulder. "Son, I'm not here for revenge. I've faced worse in my time, but this isn't just about me. It's about the way people like Ladrik think they can treat others, especially those they see as weak." Orjan nodded, understanding the deeper implications. "This isn't just personal. It's about standing up for what's right." He looked at his father, admiration shining through his concern. "You've always taught me to fight for justice, Baba. Now it's my turn to do the same." Yared smiled, pride softening the lines on his face. "I knew you'd understand. But remember, justice isn't about anger. It's about making things right for everyone." Orjan rose from the pew, determination etched into his features. "I'll pray on this tonight, but action will follow prayer. Ladrik needs to understand that Eldermore is a town built on respect. He cannot tear that down with his arrogance." Yared stood as well, placing a firm hand on Orjan's arm. "Be careful, son. This road isn't easy, but I trust you to walk it wisely." Orjan gave a solemn nod. "We'll walk it together." As the two men stood in the quiet sanctuary, the weight of their shared mission settled between them. Yared's burden was no longer his alone. Orjan had taken it upon himself, not just as a son, but as a leader of the community. And together, they would ensure justice was served. The following Sunday, St. Martin's Church was filled beyond capacity. Word of the special event had spread quickly. People from all walks of life gathered, eager to hear the stories of Eldermore's elders, whose contributions had built the foundation of their town. Father Orjan stood at the front of the sanctuary, his gaze sweeping over the congregation. He could see the tension in the air, the curiosity mixed with anticipation. Seated in the front row was Ladrik, his polished demeanor unchanged, but his eyes betraying a hint of unease. He hadn't expected the community to react so strongly to what he had dismissed as a trivial incident. Yet here he was, seated among the very people he had disregarded. Father Orjan stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Today, we honor those who have given their lives, their labor, and their love to this town. Their stories are not just memories. They are the backbone of Eldermore." He turned toward Yared, who stood slowly and approached the front. The room fell silent as Yared began to speak. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of decades. He spoke not of himself, but of the struggles and triumphs of his generation, their sacrifices, their perseverance, and their unyielding belief in the dignity of hard work. When we diminish someone because of their age, their background, or their status, Yared said, his gaze sweeping the room, we forget the very people who paved the roads we walk on today. He paused, his eyes settling briefly on Ladrick. Respect is not something granted by power. It is something earned through humanity. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Ladrick shifted in his seat, the weight of the room pressing down on him. For the first time, he saw beyond the surface. He saw the man Yared truly was. Father Orjan stepped forward once more. This is not about shaming anyone, he said. It's about reminding us all of the power of respect, humility, and community. We are stronger when we lift each other up, not when we tear each other down. The room was silent, the message sinking deep. Ladrick rose from his seat, drawing every eye in the room. He walked to the front, his normally confident demeanor subdued. Facing Yared, he took a deep breath. Mr. Yared, Ladrick began, his voice quieter than usual. I wronged you. I allowed my position to blind me to the respect you deserve. I'm sorry, not just to you, but to everyone here. I let my pride dictate my actions, and I see now how much damage that caused. He turned to the congregation. I promise to be better, not just as a banker, but as a member of this community. Yared studied Ladrick for a long moment before extending his hand. Apology accepted. But remember, respect isn't just words. It's action. Ladrick shook Yared's hand, nodding solemnly. I understand. The room erupted in applause, a wave of relief and unity washing over the congregation. What had begun as a painful confrontation had transformed into a powerful lesson in humility and redemption. In the days that followed, Ladrick became a different man. He listened more, treated everyone with fairness, and actively worked to rebuild the trust he had lost. Yared's courage and Orjan's leadership had not only changed one man's heart, but had strengthened the fabric of the entire town. Eldermore became known not just for its history, but for its community's willingness to confront prejudice with grace and justice. Father Orjan's sermon echoed long after the event, reminding everyone that true strength lies in compassion, and that dignity is the foundation upon which all communities must stand. The church bells rang out every Sunday, a testament to the town's enduring unity, and Yared's quiet strength became a legacy passed from generation to generation.